Hello again. When I talked recently on this channel about the Empire Windrush, the boat bringing immigrants from Jamaica in 1948, I was fascinated to read the piece in Kevin MacDonald's magazine, The Occidental Observer, to which a number of people provided links. The connection with Jews to the ship seemed, at first sight, very convincing. The difficulty is what you see is often, too often in fact, what you are looking for. If you're sitting in the garden and somebody draws your attention to ants, then before you know it, you'll be looking at them and then suddenly realise that they are all over the place. It's a bit like that with Jews. Once you start looking for them, they seem to be everywhere at crucial points in history. What would happen though if instead of Jews, we started looking at some other ethnic group or denomination? Would we find it then everywhere, just like the Jews? I decided to choose the Methodists for this experiment, as they are the most harmless and inoffensive people of whom I can think. My daughter attended a Methodist Sunday school and went to Girls' Brigade at the same church. I worshipped with the Methodists myself for some years. Looking at the article about the Windrush in the Occidental Observer, the first thing I notice is that it is claimed that the ship itself was owned by Jews. This is quite untrue. The New Zealand Shipping Company owned it. Their only connection with Jews is that in the late 19th century they took over a company called the Auckland Shipping Company, which had been founded by Jews, and a number of shareholders of the company were Jews. The New Zealand Shipping Company didn't have any connection with Jews at all. Interestingly, it was started in the 19th century by 7 men, 4 of whom were Methodists. Interesting, but perhaps just a coincidence. We'll come back to the Empire Windrush in a moment. First, let us consider the pernicious influence of Methodism on British political life. Methodism and radical left-wing politics have very close links, and they always have done. The Tolpuddle martyrs, of whom many viewers are likely to have heard, were all Methodists. The first Labour MP in Britain, Keir Hardie, was also a Methodist lay preacher. The number of prominent left-wingers in British politics with associations with the sect is really surprising. Michael Foot's father was another Methodist preacher, incidentally. When Enoch Powell gave his Rivers of Blood speech in 1968, the Prime Minister at the time, whom he was denouncing, was Harold Wilson. Wilson was very enthusiastic about immigration, and his government passed the first Race Relations Act. It will surprise nobody to learn that Harold Wilson used to preach in a Methodist church. He was a devoted member of the congregation. Is all this a coincidence? Returning now to the Windrush, tickets for the journey to Britain in 1948 were advertised in the Jamaican newspaper, the Daily Gleaner. There's a very strong Methodist presence in that country and has been for many years. In fact, when the advertisement appeared in the Gleaner, the editor of the newspaper was another Methodist. When the Empire Windrush docked at Tilbury in June 1948, who was the Minister of Labour in Britain? It was none other than George Alfred Isaacs. Wikipedia says Isaacs was born in Finsbury to a Methodist family. I wonder if people are starting to get the picture yet. Surely it can't be a coincidence to find that the Windrush was owned by a company founded by Methodists. The advertisement for tickets on it to Britain was advertised in a newspaper run by a Methodist, and the Minister of Labour when it arrived was another Methodist. Is anybody joining up the dots yet? Methodism runs like a poison through the veins of the British body politic, for it is not only in the Labour Party that the Methodists have a grip. Liberal Prime Minister David Lloyd George, involved of course in the Marconi scandal, was also a Methodist. Consider the longest serving Prime Minister in Britain of the 20th century, a woman who had enormous influence on the nation's history. Will anybody be at all surprised by now to find out that she too was a Methodist and that her father had actually been another Methodist preacher? Wherever we look, we see the hand of the Methodists at work. Don't even get me started about their involvement with charities for asylum seekers, refugees and other immigrants. They actively welcome refugees to the country. Their official policy states, the Methodist Church upholds practicing hospitality to migrants, immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers and others without regard to race, status, nationality or religion. They hope to flood the country with immigrants. Everything which I have said here is perfectly true, by the way. I know quite a bit about the Methodists and have a good deal of time for them. May I suggest that viewers read the link which I give to the article in Kevin MacDonald's magazine about the Empire Windrush? Everything which is written about the Jews in that piece could just as easily be replaced with Methodists and be even more accurate than it actually is. It's not a particularly accurate article. I have an idea that I could do the same thing just like that about atheists, Catholics, communists or anybody else as we could about Jews or Methodists. It might perhaps be wholesome for people to think on this the next time they're tempted to believe that the Jews are responsible for immigration, poisoning wells, kidnapping Christian children and using their blood to make matzah, or whatever other foolishness is being circulated.